And speaking of whistleblowers, former NSA contractor Edward Snowden had some special visitors travel all the way to Moscow to meet with him this week. FBI whistleblower Jesselyn Radack, NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake, former CIA analyst Ray McGovern, and FBI whistleblower Coleen Rowley met Snowden in a secret location. They are the first Americans known to have met him since he was granted asylum in Russia in August. They traveled to Moscow to present Snowden with the Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence. Also, Lon Snowden, Edward's father, arrived at the Sheremetyevo airport this morning. Lon has yet to meet with his son, but is planning to see him in the next couple of days. RT's Kevin Owen caught up with a group of whistleblowers earlier today for a sort of meeting of the minds. Here's a wrap-up of that conversation.
Well, you know, some would call them veteran whistleblowers. Jesselyn Radack, Thomas Andrews Drake, Ray McGovern, Coleen Rowley all sat around the table with me earlier to tell me their experiences of whistleblowing themselves and how they were treated then by the authorities as a result. Just earlier, they'd met Edward Snowden at an undisclosed location here in Russia. We're still under heavy security to present him with the Sam Adams Award that's been presented annually since 2002 to intelligence professionals who've taken a stand for integrity and ethics for what they see is the greater good. Incidentally, Samuel A. Adams was a CIA whistleblower during the Vietnam War. Now, we've been extensively covering Edward Snowden's story on RT for a long time. The first thing I wanted to ask was, how was he?
I thought he looked great. He seemed very centered and brilliant, smart, funny, very engaged. I thought he looked very well.
Then, of course, the obvious question was, given the time Edward Snowden's now had to reflect on what he's done, did he have any regrets? Well, in fact, Ray McGovern, a former federal employee who served under 7 U.S. presidents over 27 years, but then in 2002 went on to criticize President George W. Bush's use of government intelligence in the lead-up to that war in Iraq, put that very same thought to Edward.
This is an extraordinary person. He's made his peace with what he did. He's convinced that what he did was right. He has no regrets, and he's willing to face whatever the future holds for him.
Is that the person you saw in front of you, Coleen?
Yes, actually we discussed this integrity and intelligence issue quite extensively. And we talked about prior examples of great people in history that had themselves been under this type of pressure, and he's remarkably centered.
Then thoughts went to, what about the future? Well, I asked them if Edward Snowden had shared any of his plans for the immediate or long-term future. Their response focused on the future reforms he's paved the way for now by his revelations.
I think his primary concern is about reform, not about his future or what's going to happen to him, but more about having the reform that is that has begun in the United States, and more importantly, or just as importantly, around the world, because it really is a global issue to the extent that the NSA is spying on everybody, friend or foe, and that conversation needs to continue. And also, people need to realize that there's a greater issue of human rights that is brought up by asylum, and the fact that a number of people involved in his case, like Sarah Harrison, Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, people are having trouble even moving around and getting where they're going. I can speak personally and say, we weren't worried about coming into your country. We are worried about getting back into our own country. And that should not be the case.
The irony is the United States has abandoned the rule of law. It's unchained itself from its very own constitution, the mechanism by which we govern ourselves. So when the U.S. abandons the rule of law and uses secret law, secret opinion, secret interpretations of law, we're in a whole new ballgame. It's Pandora's box.
And of course, these last 24 hours, we also think he's been or about to be reunited with his dad, who's over here in Moscow as well, who I'm sure behind closed doors will be giving Edward the support that only a father can.
That was Kevin Owens from RT Moscow.